Good evening. We'll call this meeting together. Today is Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. And I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Edwin, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right on the second. You have the 7-second delay, Brian, or
Yeah. We're good.
just in case?
Just in case. Okay. All right, I'm going to take attendance. Marcia Coots. Here. Brian Moore.
Here.
Andy Fowler. Here. Louise Sheedy. Here. Okay, I'll note that we have a quorum. And I'd like to open up the public hearing for activities considered significant regarding application IW 23-10 for proposed fuel pumps, canopy, and additional pavement to be added to the site with existing building located at 801 Rubber Avenue, and the applicant is Nadeem Khalid. And just to note that the public hearing was open to 7 and it must close by 3:13. So.
Nadeem, just make sure you turn the microphone on. On the button.
There's a button.
There's a button, just,
There you
Yep.
go, you got it.
Good evening, this is Nadeem Khalid. We are property on the 801 Rubber Avenue. James Tamayo is on our line. He can have some comments regarding some of the commission requested this month. James, can you take over?
Yes, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James DeMeo. I'm a professional engineer. I'm located at 1 McConney Grove in Derby, Connecticut. So I don't want to have to rehash the whole presentation, but essentially what I'd like to cover tonight is the findings from the third-party review and discuss what their recommendations were and how we aim to address these comments. So just to summarize, their first concern was that they would recommend percolation tests and basically some soil testing to be done to determine the suitability of the stormwater management plan. And we agree this is something that is typically done prior to the start of construction. Therefore, this way, if any little tweaks need to be made, they can be made at that point. But that's essentially how we would address that one. The second comment that they had was that they recommended that the downstream defender, the oil and grit separator, be upgraded to a 6-foot diameter model to ensure adequate stormwater pre-treatment. If you remember the layout of the site, all the area in front of the building where we are disturbing, that area is now getting graded so that we can now capture and collect it and treat it. The balance of the site is remaining untouched and therefore, acting as it was prior to any development or prior to what we're proposing. To give you an idea, in the 100-year storm, that what we're capturing is 1.65 CFS, and the current unit that we have is rated for 3 CFS. So the current model that we are already proposing is essentially double what's going to go or be directed into it anyway. So it could handle more than enough. Not to mention, by the time it hits a 100-year storm, that parking lot's underwater and it's kind of a moot point. But it theoretically can handle. It's way over designed. I'm going to skip over the third comment for right now. The fourth one was that they encourage additional of tree box filters and bioretention planting beds to increase filtration and treatment on site. Our current design is essentially exceeding what's required by the stormwater quality manual for infiltration. Are due to the activity on our site, according to the manual, we're required to infiltrate 15.7 cubic feet of water. We are proposing 130 cubic feet. So essentially, we're already proposing over 8 times what the stormwater quality recommends. So we believe that that's meets and exceeds everything. Plus, on top of it, in terms of water quality, we do have the mechanical downstream defender already, which I just went over, which is already double the size, mainly because it's the smallest size that's even available. The fifth comment was the borough engineer should confirm all proposed stormwater management design calculations. I believe we are all set there. The borough engineer could comment on that, but I believe we are meeting everything and we're all in agreement. The last comment would be, because the proposed stormwater management design will tie into the existing stormwater infrastructure, we recommend checking to see if the existing infrastructure can handle any potential increase in storm flows that the system is modified. Yeah, and that the system is modified accordingly. The watersheds are being directed in the exact same location. So again, we have the front of the building, which we are capturing. All of that was going into the stormwater catch basins essentially that are in the road. And that's where our overflow is going as well. So, and we're reducing it for every storm. So if it was already going there, we're already reducing it, so it should be sufficient. And I'm just going to circle back to the third comment that I skipped over, which was plant diversity should be added to the proposal, not only to add for added pollinator and wildlife habitat, but also for increased resiliency to climate and site conditions. So the two water courses, essentially that's what they are, on the other side of the road. Those are the wetland and the regulated areas. So I'd like the commission just to keep in mind that this is an urban environment. So you have the two water courses, the width of road, and then the development. So we are proposing, get my numbers correct. We are already proposing 4 maple trees as well as 35 inkberry bushes. Again, we wanted to fit in with the character of the area. So we didn't want to have anything too big. Because again, we also wanted to look like a gas station. We don't want to hide it. So that's what we're currently proposing. We are open to potentially modifying that or creating more diversity. But I just wanted to respond to the comments from the third party. So if the commission has any questions, comments on what I just mentioned, I'm more than happy to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, I hope Jim wants to comment. Did you have any comments about?
I can certainly comment on those if you'd like.
Yes, please.
The percolation test, I would agree that that would be a condition of approval and it should be done prior to the construction, just to make sure that the system is designed appropriately. I agree with James DeMayo that the 4-foot defender is the appropriate size for the project. The plant diversity, I spoke to Lori and what we're suggesting is if you choose to vote to approve the project, that this be referred as a request to the zoning commission. The plants that they're proposing are all zoning related. They're not near wetlands. They're not protect the wetlands. So I think it's a zoning issue that we could refer to them. The tree box filters, as James Dino said, they have sized the system much larger than it needs to be. As you may know, the state has updated their stormwater regulations, their center erosion control regulations, all coming into effect this beginning of this month, but it does not apply to people who have already submitted or people who are 50% at the design phase at this point. So it doesn't strictly apply to this subdivision, and the tree filters are really in the new regulations. In addition, it's such a small site, mostly paved to begin with. I don't think it's something that's appropriate. Regarding confirming the stormwater management design calculations, I did have comments on his first plan, which he's revised to a newer plan and addressed all my issues and does meet all the requirements, including zero increase in runoff for all the storms and the water quality, holding the water quality line. So he meets that.
What about a bond? Jim, you guys suggested a bond?
We have
I
that.
believe we've got a bond.
What's the, and for the purpose of,
And then regarding the tying into the existing infrastructure. He's correct, he is reducing the storm flow for each of the storms. So is the existing system appropriate for the 100-year storm? Well, obviously not, it's underwater. But I mean, the borough attorney can respond to that. We can't make him reconstruct the whole intersection and the bridges and everything, obviously. So I think that it's better than it was before.
So what he's planning on doing is not actually going to make the intersection all that worse, it'll improve it.
Providing storage, so it improves it, but very minor. You know, I mean, it's
not gonna get any
In the
worse.
scheme of things, there's a lot of water out there.
Yeah, there is.
And he's gonna make it how much better? Tiny
But
bit.
it won't be worse.
No, I don't believe so.
what's his, okay, what's the date of Mr. Stewart's letter? Yes.
That's today. No, yesterday we did that.
So
So,
well, regarding the bond, he submitted a bond of $26,000, some of which is for sidewalks. That would be added on, during any zoning approval. I'm supposed to be reduced to I think it was 15,000, and then zoning would add whatever plants and whatever else, that they require. And the sidewalk bond would be added on.
The motion had heard pursuant to his letter, the bond, no, pursuant to his letter, do you have the date? No, pursuant to the engineer, borough engineer's letter, January 7th.
We received that.
the date of the 17th.
January 7th, 2021.
That's the applicants. They send it to us. They fill it out, send it to us.
All right, so what's the date of it says posted is one. Yeah, but I don't know.
1/25/24, approved by the borough engineer. 1/25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the only one.
Exactly.
You take first.
Do you have anything that you would like to add or can comment on?
I think we pretty much, Jim Smile, gave the presentation, we just covered all that for the partners.
Okay,
And like his report and his comments, the way he designed, he did very independently to make sure it don't harm anything.
okay.
So that, that's the reason he is on board, and hopefully we'll get your blessings to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners have any questions? The applicant?
I just have a question for Mr. DeMayo. Would you just explain again how you're going to be grading the parking lot where the gas pumps are going, I guess? Because right now it's, pretty much pitched going into the road. I think Newman Street, right? So just explain to me again how you're going to improve that.
Yes, ma'am. So what we're proposing to do is it's all still going in that direction. However, we're actually making it a little bit better because it was kind of going in a couple different directions, but in an effort to make sure that we capture and can collect and treat all of that water, we are now pushing it all towards Newman Street, like you're saying. Because there was some that was directed towards Rubber Ave, which then still went to the same catch basin network that discharges. So we're not really shifting where the water's going. But all we're doing is essentially just shifting it all so we can collect it towards Newman. And that's why we have a large trench drain being proposed along the street as well as a catch basin in the corner. Again, just to make sure that we can collect it all.
Yes.
Okay, can I just follow up with that? I don't know if you were, did you see the pictures or the video at the last meeting of that area when it was flooded in one of the rainstorms?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just wondering if we have another flood like that, what will happen to that water? I mean, how much of it will go into this trench drain and how much will bypass it? Do you have an idea?
So the thing is, the water will be above the elevation of any catch basins or trench drains that we have. So as that the flood waters come up, it's all going into our system at that point. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast being under the 100-year flood elevation. It's our system is going to help alleviate. Okay, we're talking very minor, but technically it will help pull some of the flood waters out because now we're providing more storage underneath the ground that wouldn't theoretically be there. But we're talking so minor, it's not really going to do anything. We're not making it worse, is essentially what's happening. But technically speaking, once you hit that 100-year storm elevation for the flood waters, it will enter our system or be above it.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's no gas pumps there now, right?
Correct.
So once you put the gas pumps in and you have flooding, you really don't know what it's going to do to oils that are on the ground or, anything with the pumps or anything like that. And that's gonna be captured by these basins. Is this gonna flow into the brook? Is this gonna, I mean, right now, if you did nothing but just modified the site without the gas pumps, it might make it a little better or it might not make a difference. But once you add in fuel storage and vehicles, you're adding another element to that.
So the existing use is a convenience store now. So ideally, people are going to be driving their cars there, parking them. So the addition of vehicles isn't really happening with the gas station and the fuel pumps. The fuel pumps themselves and the entire system is enclosed. It's tight. So even if water is above it, below it, around it, none of those oils are going to be seeping out. So all of that is self-contained. In terms of like the electrical for things like the fuel pumps, all of that, according to building code, is going to have to be out of the flood elevation anyway, and or protected from anything damaging that. So the only additional hazard would be the spills from the gas pumps. Now, again, typically what's going to end up happening is during rain events, the first flush, which is currently 1 inch or 1.3 inches, either way, our system can handle significantly more. That's what needs to be treated because that's where all the oils, or that's how much rain will actually pick up all the sediment, all the oils, all that off of the area. So that will all happen before any flood events happen because typically it rains, then it floods. It doesn't go the other way. It doesn't really flood, then rain. So it should treat anything there by that point. And then the only other hazard would be is if there's an active spill, so vehicles dripping is kind of minor because again, it's not much different than a parking lot anyway. So there's really no difference between a gas station and a parking lot or a road, which again, that road overtops with water as well. So any oils on the road technically would come up at that point as well. So there's really not much of a difference. It's the active spills, which there are procedures set in place to clean up any active spills. And those are mandated by the state and things like that for gas stations.
In addition to that, Department of Environmental Protection, they have a semi and, every 6 months has to be tested, or the vapor test, or the electrical, they come in, independent people comes in, they monitor, check it, and report to DOT. Any violation has to be shut on the site, has to address immediately. So in case of any water, any issue concern, everything is should be 100%, it should be, they've been third-party monitored, and it is 100% sealed and covered.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions? Brian, any questions? No?
Actually, yeah, I do. I have a question about, do you have like a maintenance cleanup schedule? I see, when I go to gas stations up in Hartford and they have the nice concrete pads with the channels that would catch it. But up in Hartford, they're all full of dirt and they would do nothing. Do you have any kind of cleaning schedule, anything like that?
A cleaning schedule for those grooves, like in particular, or just any?
In general, but I'm concerned about the grooves themselves, yes.
Okay, so the grooves, we're more than happy to basically dictate the schedule and add it to the schedule of the normal maintenance for the entire stormwater system, and it would follow the same maintenance that the catch basins would. However, I would add one additional caveat, which would be after any significant flooding event. Because at that point you will end up with significant debris or potential for significant debris to fill those channels. So I would just add that one caveat in terms of how often they do it, but it would follow the same catch basin screening, which is essentially twice a year. But keep in mind, anytime that there is an active spill, it does have to be monitored and cleaned up anyway at that point. So it's one of those, it'll do both. And then even if it does get past, any spills do get past those grooves, which is possible, it then does go into our system. So again, we have that oil grit separator and then our infiltration system as well. So we do have our treatments in place, kind of belt and suspenders. We got 3 levels and we only really need 1, but we got 3.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just have a question for our engineer. So Jim, the infiltration testing that you're suggesting, are you suggesting that when that take place, how soon after, I assume, completion of construction? And do you recommend that occur more than one time?
No, it should be done prior to any building permit.
Well, what about after to make sure it's operating properly?
Well, once they prove the infiltration,
Yeah.
then, I mean, you wouldn't do it again. You could certainly have a condition that they inspect their system, which they're gonna have to do.
Right, and would you want that inspection then done on a certain occurrence
So,
or
I believe they're saying it should be.
twice a
done
year?
Twice a year.
Is that sufficient? Is it sufficient that be done in conjunction with the catch basins?
Oh, I would say so, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what's being proposed is that gets inspected and cleaned essentially every time that the catch basins would as well. So it's all kind of together.
No other questions? Okay. So this is a public hearing. If there are any members of the public that would like to come up and speak, please do so. I'll ask again. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak regarding 801 Rubber Avenue?
There's one.
Regarding 801 Rubber Avenue?
The gas station?
Yes.
Good evening, Christina Gordon, 131 Rubber Avenue. Statistically, all underground storage tanks tend to leak over time. So it's really just an inevitable leaching into the soil and therefore the adjacent groundwaters. That's why almost all properties that at one time were petroleum stations find themselves under DEP regulation when properties transfer. Because soil testing confirms that at some point in time, the tanks degrade and leaching occurs. That is all I can say. Please decline this application. Thank you.
Any other member of the public would like to speak regarding 801 River Avenue? State your name and address, please. Thank you.
My name is Edward Lavash. I live on 180 May Street. It's been a long time, but tanks have been improved over the years. And there is a regular amount of time in which tanks have to be taken out and whatnot to prevent the leaking of any fuel. Now, these tanks that go in there today are airtight. They're all managed by controls by the manufacturer who puts the tanks in. So if there's a cap that's loose and air is getting out, alarms get set so that they send somebody out there immediately to protect it. Like I said, I can understand her feeling saying that in the past tanks have leaked. Yes, but those were different type of tanks. You went from a metal tank that could rust out versus a plastic tank that's not gonna rust out. So as far as the leaking is concerned, I don't see that there's gonna be a hazard there. And of course, we want to keep business here in the town because it pays the taxes. And unfortunately, this gentleman is installing and spending his money to improve that area and keep that business going so that he can pay the taxes to this town. Thank you.
Any other member of the public would like to speak on 801 River Avenue? State your name and address, please.
My name is Donald Holander. I'm at 1388 River Avenue Extension. I would just like to state for the record that where I work down in Wilton, there's been a lot of construction, a lot of business. I work at a multi-billion-dollar company. And what I can tell you is Wilton, where I work, they have parking outside. That parking requires gravel, requires draining. There's not enough parking where I work. The issue is that the cars, the antifreeze, the oils, the dripping of gasoline, the dripping of other things, it does get into the groundwater. It gets tested. The water areas around our building, our facility, are constantly tested. So the question I have is, when we come up here and we question a leaky tank or leaky pipes potentially, or when it's going to be treated, when it's going to be taken out, what is the maintenance? The question I also raise is, what's the budget for that? How do we ensure that that work, that maintenance doesn't get cut? And then all of a sudden we have a problem. Then all of a sudden we're on TV trying to get reporters, trying to get people to see our plight. I don't want to go there. I want to make sure that we don't go there. And I don't see how this plan ensures that we don't go there. Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak regarding 801 River Avenue? Is there anybody on the line that would like to speak regarding 801 River Avenue? No. Oh, somebody's waving their hand. You can't see that far, so.
I can't.
I think it was when,
Can't see the
I think it was Ed's pointer, see,
No. Yeah, but
It was-
the top right corner.
no, that's Jim from there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one.
See, is he, wait, does he want?
I don't know who wants to speak. He'd like to.
Excuse me,
Oh, we have, oh, I'm sorry. Snuck right up there.
I have a lot to say, but
Name and address, please.
Alec Wargo, 1058 River Avenue.
Thank you.
Any kind of system of this sort, it really doesn't matter. Mankind has never, ever been able to build something that doesn't fail. And there's not than anything that's ever been built. That later on, somebody says, well, you know, we should have done that. But now we can't. And that's what you're talking about. It's not that simple. A tank, yeah, a tank can leak. They all do eventually. Then it's too late. It's not like nobody is God and no one is capable of doing something that absolutely, positively can screw up. And that's what you have to really think about. It's the simple fact. Now, well, we followed the rules. What the hell does that mean? Nothing. Somebody analyzed it and said, well, by our calculations, it can't go wrong, go wrong, go wrong. But it always does. Everywhere. Because what was allowed at this point in time, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, more than likely won't be allowed. A good example is my home. Not my home, but my oil tank. Now, they've got the tank, so it was the last time I heard, 20 years. Not an inspection. You have to take it out and replace it. There's no other alternative. If it's in the ground, something will go wrong. And invariably it does. If somebody can prove that they're perfect, that's wonderful. We should have him do the job. But he doesn't exist for anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public would like to speak on A1 revenue?
Hi, Dave Rogers, 100 Hill Road, Naugatuck, Connecticut. I just think it's a really risky place to put a gas station. It's got 2 river courses coming down. The only worst place I can think of putting it is on the Millville Nursery property.
Anyone else would like to speak regarding 801 Rubber Avenue? No one online, no one on Zoom?
I got no hands.
Okay, very good. Yes, please.
I just wanted to follow up, with a question regarding, the tank. I know we just had some replaced on Rubber Avenue at another location. What is the, Jim?
Okay, so, I'll tell you my experience is, we had a tank at the street department. That was a bare steel tank. It's installed probably in the 50s. And it's true, it leaked like a sieve. When they pulled it out of the ground, finally it had a hole the size of a quarter. And probably had one the size of a dime and a nickel next to it. So it had rusted out and was completely gone. That was a bare steel tank. And those were all removed in the 90s. They replaced them with double wall, cathodically protected, coated steel tanks. And DEP only allows you to keep those tanks in the ground for 30 years, no matter what. And that's why they're all coming out now, because they all were replaced 30 years ago or 35 years ago, because, and you'll start to see it calm down because everyone is on the same cycle. When the DEP set up those regulations, whatever, 35 years ago. The town just replaced, the tank at the town hall. It was 32 years. We were a couple of years late. It came out, it was cathodically protected, tank, and it came out, it was pristine. It looked like the day it went in the ground. We also replaced the tank at the armory, that the military put in 32 years ago also. We were 2 years late. and it came out of the ground and it looked like the day it went in. The pipes are all, double walled too, they have a liner around them, and people are right, they do fail. But what happens is the inside of the tank fails, if it fails, and I haven't heard of one happening, but inside the interstitial space, that double wall, they have a sensor in there that is right in the office of the gas station that goes off and tells them that there is a leak in the system. So,
And then should.
so yeah, it could fail, but there is a secondary.
And that's part of the testing that comes on?
Basically shut off the system.
Mhm.
You cannot bypass until unless somebody, professional licensed person come. Nobody can bypass the system. The tanks are double wall. They have a sensor monitoring plus it's specified inside. Plus the lines are all, as well as the spill buckets. Everything is about 200 times been protected. Any drop of gas while the tanker drop it, its sensor goes off, it notifies the system, it notifies the people, maintenance people. Nobody can bypass till they come in and they repair and replace and they immediately notify DEP. That's how these things are so sensitive nowadays. I know I mentioned earlier, the pumps, the tanks, or the fill buckets, everything is like a 6 month, monitoring people come, they check it and they tested everything. Even you buried that tank, sometimes water tables are that high that if you take the 2 feet of the dirt, the tank pushed out. I mean, they are buried in a tank, in a water, all those tanks. But all those bells and whistles, all the sensor is really, the tank today's age and time costs 3 times what we used to do it because all those safety features they added.
I seem to
And
recall,
we are not here to harm anything, trust me.
It's heavily regulated.
I mean, I seem to recall when the gas station went in across the street from Stop and Shop, that the commission actually, I mean, we really got detailed information on how these safety systems work. And I do recall it being that it has to go to deep to be, a report needs to go to them, they have to send someone out, it's a rigorous schedule. And the reason that these are safer now is because we have learned from past errors. I mean, we've evolved. Can you ever guarantee that 100% something's not gonna fail? No, you can't. But you have to go based on experience and what we've learned and be ready for it. So, thank you. Any other questions from the commission?
Maybe Mr. DeMayo, could you explain when you're going to do these population tests? And then what will we do with this information, if we find it's not compatible?
Yes, ma'am. So how the tests will work is there'll be 2 types of tests. The consultant only mentioned infiltration tests, but we'll also be doing typically a deep test. So these tests pretty much mirror like what's done with septics. So the deep test, what we're going to be looking for is evidence of high groundwater. We're going to be looking for the groundwater table and or a restrictive layer such as ledge. And then the infiltration test, or perk test, basically will be measuring how quickly the water will infiltrate into the soils. Those tests will be done prior to the issuance of any building permit, any certificate to start from zoning, like before anything truly happens. That's when that happens. And then once we do those tests, I'll take a look at it. I'll basically confer with the borough engineer, say, hey, Jim, this is what we got for results. As long as everything comes out the way that we're anticipating, okay, hey, these are the test results, we should be good. If not, then I will have to propose something different that will work the same way that we are proposing now. So ideally, it's, nothing else is really going to change other than potentially the cost of the system may go up. But the functionality of it needs to meet what we are currently proposing. So that's the only risk is that, you know, if it's not ideal, there's typically always an engineering solution. It's just a matter of how much is it truly going to cost to develop, which is what, you know, myself and the borough engineer will work through to verify that, hey, we're still in compliance.
And then it would be up to the applicant whether or not I wanted to proceed with that.
Correct. Essentially, that's what it'll be up to. Yeah. However, at that point, once he gets the approvals, I doubt that that'll stop him. I mean, I don't think it'll be that astronomical, but yes.
Well, the key is we have, the borough engineer, is subject to Jim Stewart's approval, so it's gonna be the infiltration will. So I guess could result in a different design, but you're gonna have to approve it anyway, it's subject to your specification.
And that design, if they changed it, would come back before the
Yeah,
commission,
significant changes, we bring it back.
would bring it back. So, and I know that's happened before too.
Absolutely.
We've had that
Right,
happen,
that's right.
so. Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? No? Staff? No? Good. Public? Okay. If there are no more questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay. So the public hearing is now closed. Thank you all for your comments and questions. Appreciate that. When you go into our regular meeting minutes, regular meeting agenda, the review and approval of the February 7, 2024 meeting minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review that? And were there any questions, comments, concerns, or changes? Okay. No, please, no, Brian?
I'm good.
That's okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 7, 2024 inland wetland meeting, with no amendments. So moved.
So moved.
First is Wendy, second is Brian. All approved? Aye. Any abstain? Any nay? Okay. Approved. Thank you. Need to kind of just skip around a little bit. I'm gonna go into the WEO report, item 7. Application IW 20-08 for commercial development at 0 Prospect Street, and the applicant is Magdi Babawi and Auntie Cuadros.
All right, so I talked to, Wayne went out last week with coastal materials testing and Wayne Zaroli went out with coastal materials testing from West Haven, and Auntie scheduled the borings to be done this Friday, March 8th.
Oh, great, okay.
All right,
So moving on, very good. Okay. Item B, the application IWAA 2303 for the addition at 707-709 Rubber Avenue, and the applicant is Dion Xavier.
that one, the silk fence and hay bales are still up. It's a good thing we put the hay bales in the front because
Yeah.
they took a little beating, the silk fence, but there's also about 20 feet or more to the water course in the back, so if you ever drive by, the siding's up now, it's getting there.
Good.
Look good.
Fantastic. Okay, and item C, application IW 23-07 for pedestrian walkway over the Pulling Mills Brook located at 0 Prospect Street in the account 060-7050 and 47 Prospect Street, and the applicant is P&M Property Management.
The bridge has not been delivered yet, so
I
everything,
think he's waiting on some modifications to that. I understand some windows and cut the doors
and then once it gets here, he has to place it and then
Place it.
paint it.
okay. Right, okay, very good. All right. And then I want to skip to item 8, administrative business. Permit for a application for permitted use as of right for maintenance equipment replacement of the existing aerator located at the Mulberry Reservoir, and the applicant is Connecticut Water Company. And I see we have that permit here.
Correct, so that is permitted as of right,
Yes.
and I had to fill out the application, and it's under permitted use 4 on the second page.
Yep.
So, and they also gave us a map where the aerator's going.
And there's one that's existing there now, they're just replacing
Correct.
it, the same standard.
Correct.
Is it going in the same location?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly?
I don't know.
I think it's being right
Exact, but it's
next to it.
Did they locate it by GPS?
So here's where the
Next
new
to water
aerator
center.
is. Let's see where the existing one was. I did read, let's say, it would be, let's see,
That's the spot.
the footprint of the aerator is the same as the previously installed. It's a 6-foot diameter bottom plate and 3 24-inch concrete blocks for stabilization. The aerator will be placed in the water using a crane. Replacement unit will be 6 feet in diameter and approximately 30 feet tall. Existing air line will be disconnected from the old unit and used on the new unit. The installation is planned for the spring of 2024. It doesn't say if it's in the exact same
Was it
spot.
the footprint of the aerator is in the same as the previously installed aerator?
Well, it's the same footprint, but is it in the same location? Yes, it's the same diameter. But are they looking?
Sounds like it's going to be next to it.
Yeah.
And disconnecting it.
I mean, there's only so many places they can put it, so.
So they're removing the old one.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
That's very good.
Sounds like they're connecting a line,
They're
And then
connecting
they're
the
going
line.
to take out.
then they'll remove it.
Exactly. Commissioners have any questions regarding that?
There's no vote.
There's no vote, it's just a, very good, thank you.
I had one letter that came in. I don't know if it's in your packets.
It is, okay. One letter.
It would have been in when I gave you the additional information with.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Oh, yes, okay, so let me just read this into the record. This is from William Sweet, dated February 14th. Regarding the temporary bridge placement. Temporary bridge at the Prospect Street, which recently received an extension until July 2024, was placed directly below the drainage run that spilled out behind 58 Costco Lane. These pictures were taken Saturday, February 10th, 2024 from 58 Costco Lane. I'm providing them as they may or may not be of interest to the Naugatuck IWC. You'll please note the flatbed trucks are directly in the path of this runoff. And I think he meant the bridge, the temporary bridge that was there. Despite the decision for approval of this placement being water over the dam, I want this email to be placed in the record as evidence of what appears to me to be an ill-advised decision, with the hopes that future decisions will require more due diligence before allowing such risk to the wetlands, as is now evident after the heavy rains of this past December and January. Regards, Bill Sweet, 62 Costco Lane. Now, I know that you went out there.
I did go out there. I have pictures. I have his pictures and Ed and I, Wayne went out there and took pictures, but there was snow on the ground. Ed and I were there today. The water doesn't go straight down the hill. It kind of goes through. If you want to bring up the pictures, it's not wearing away the bridge at all.
And no, I don't think so, because when I go by it, it's like off to the side a little bit, so.
The way
it comes down, so it's not, I would think that it would have damaged that bridge by now. I mean, we can't control where water flows in a natural setting like that, so.
The bridge is not moving. There's about 8 feet on one side. I have pictures. I have them in the file, so.
Commissioners have any question on that?
Do you say you have the pictures in the file or we can see them on the
You can
screen?
see them on the screen.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Do you share screen, Ed?
Let's bring them.
And
I
then
go by it all the
go
time,
down on
so-
the bottom.
This one,
Okay.
temporary bridge file.
Yeah. And then there's the see pictures. You see the different pictures I have. Over, yeah, and that right in that, yeah.
Which one I have?
Which pictures do you want to see? Do you want to see Bill Sleets or do you want to see ours from today, which?
Yeah, I'll see Bill, what Bill's talking about, and then what you actually observed.
They're not coming up.
Just takes a second.
Brian, can you see these?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so that's taken from Bill's.
The top of the
Top of
hill
the
from
hill.
Bill's, and it's hard to see,
Wait,
but it looks like.
Actually, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Can't see it? What is-
It says I am screen sharing.
Yeah.
Stopping and.
So
I
it's the-
I can, what I can see is a file explorer with the pick 1, pick 2, and pick 3, but I don't see the pictures themselves.
Okay, try again.
That's the outlet at the top of hospital, so down the bottom, which actually kind of looks like it's more off to the right, is where the bridge is, so I don't know how that's straight.
When you see that,
Again, all I'm seeing is File Explorer with pick 1, pick 2, and pick 3, wherever you have the Explorer up.
We can email.
I can email them to you, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So this is from Brian, up the top.
This is at the top. We're not at the bridge yet.
So you can't see the bridge from where this picture is then?
The bridge would be way down there. Prospect Street is way down there. This is where it comes out from Costco Lane at the top,
That's what the town was gonna repair,
They did.
or
They
the
did,
applicant
that's
was
the
gonna
difference.
repair it.
right? But again,
Okay.
there was never an easement given.
Okay. And what's the next picture? If you can bring it up.
I'm gonna go to. It's more of the same.
Okay.
Afraid if I X out, I'll lose
No,
everything,
yes,
so I
that's
don't,
here.
I don't wanna do that.
And then you have pictures from,
I'm gonna go to
visit.
the pictures that Lori took then,
Okay.
and this is today.
So this is the bridge, this is the side that's across the brook. You know, Prospect Street to the left, this is across, you see, there's a good 8 feet or more, I mean, that's not moving.
No.
So Prospect Street is over here
Correct.
and the river is over here. It's sat on the concrete blocks there.
Mhm.
And what was, Mr. Sweet saying was happening?
But
Can
the-
you describe it, showing me the bridge?
He's saying that where the pipe is coming out on the top, the drainage is straight above the bridge. But the water doesn't go straight down the hill in a direct line, it kind of,
It gets to be about 30 to 40 feet away from the bridge.
there's the
This
other.
is the other side of the bridge.
Then.
So it's not anywhere, right? Okay, it's basically what it is, so. But we always
And
appreciate
then
comments.
it comes down through here and
There's a
goes
lot
to
of
the
low
river.
spots there you can see, and there's some, wetlands flags.
This is standing on the bridge. The water came down over in this area.
Okay.
Is his concern erosion? What's his concern?
His concern is that where the pipe is located, where the bridge was installed, that it was going directly down the hill to the bridge. Now, the bridge, I guess, this is state property, so they're only giving him a 6-month extension.
Mhm.
Which we didn't see any evidence of that,
We didn't see any evidence of erosion under the bridge.
or the water coming down near the bridge.
Alright, very good. Thank you. Okay. I think, the order if we took a quick recess, maybe like a quick recess, just to. Right, very nice, thank you. Call this meeting back to order at 7:39 p.m. Thank you all for your patience, we really appreciate it.
Like,
Oh, how about that? Can you hear me? Good, okay.
Better.
Just testing. Okay. All right. So, here. All right, we'll go back into old business. And we're going to go to item B, the commission discussion decision regarding application IW 23-10 for proposed fuel pumps, canopy, and additional pavement to be added to site with existing building located, excuse me, at 801 Rubber Avenue, and the applicant is Nadine Farid. So, we've had our public hearing, and we've heard from the applicant and the engineer, as well as the borough engineer on this. Is the commission, do you feel confident in making any kind of motion on this, or would you like to further discuss it?
I'd like to see the results of the perk test.
Okay, but that's, well, we can't do the perk test until they approve, it gets approved or
So it has to
whatever.
get approved or something.
Right, so, and as Jim stated, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if the perk tests come back and it doesn't meet the standards, then obviously the project can't proceed or the design needs to change or whatnot,
I
so,
misunderstood that.
Yep.
Yeah.
okay, sure. Marcia, you have any questions?
No, I don't. Right now.
Okay, Brian?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's good. All right, and I don't, I mean, I understand everything that was proposed and I feel pretty confident that, you know, and knowing what we know from past experience with gas stations and with any application that comes before us, every time it comes before us, we learn something new. And I think that makes us better. And, you know, it hopefully makes the town better too, because we learned something, from this. So, yep, you had your chance.
I know. Now, as far as the Southwest Conservation District report, where there's a lot of zoning issues they address in here, will these be passed on to zoning?
Well, this is part of the record, correct?
How does that work, or do they need to ask for
So-
it as well?
So-
Because I think there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yes.
So what you can do,
Mhm.
is you can recommend that the zoning commission, as one of your recommendations, you can't make it a condition, but you can recommend zoning commission, review and to consider all the recommendations contained in, is it the Southwest? Is it
Yeah.
the Southwest
Mhm.
Soils and Conservation Service
Correct.
report? And there's a date on that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
February
February
28th.
That's what you can do. And zoning, I can tell you, the experience does consider when your commission sends recommendations to it, they do look at it, I can tell you that. Okay. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good information in here, and, you know, we had a few residents talked of the flooding, we know of the flooding, it's a floodplain, so I think that's something they may want to consider.
Great.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? Good. Okay. Does anybody object to proceeding with this application? No, objected, Brian?
No.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve application IW 2310 for the proposed fuel pumps, canopy and additional pavement to be added to a site with an existing building located at 801 River Avenue. The plans are titled Proposed Site Plan for Gas Station, Land of Noggy Stop LLC, 801 River Avenue, Naugatuck, Connecticut, dated October 24, 2023, revised January 5th, 2024. The applicant is Nadeem Khalid, with all the general conditions and the following site-specific conditions. An infiltration testing shall take place prior to obtaining a building permit to ensure suitability of the proposed stormwater management design as approved by the borough engineer. And two, the applicant to submit a bond in the amount of $15,250 in a form acceptable to the borough attorney. And with the following recommendation to the zoning commission, for zoning commission's consideration, is to consider more plant diversity for the landscaping plan. And also that we would recommend that they review and consider the Southwest Conservation District, report dated February 28th, 2024, in their review. Okay, do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Marcia?
I'll second it.
Wendy on second? Okay, all approved? Aye.
Aye.
Any abstain? Any nay? Okay, motion is approved. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll go into item 4A, old business. And just a reminder that the public hearing for apartments at Long Meadow did close last month. So we will not be taking any public comments regarding the application this evening. This is a commission discussion decision regarding application IW 2308 for the proposed development Long Meadow Apartments to be located over multiple parcels on Webb Road and Rubber Avenue, and the applicant is Apartments at Long Meadow LLC. Ned, I'm going to turn over to you a little bit.
Why don't you move that mic over? You can have that one.
Is that on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, everybody hear me? Anybody can't hear me back there? They're saying no, does that mean they? Okay, so, thank you, Madam Chair. So for this is the, deliberation and considerations portion of the commission's, role in making a decision regarding this application. There are two actions that the commission will take, make decisions on. I don't know if it'll be tonight, but one of them is that there has been an application filed pursuant to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Act. That is one of the applications for the disturbance of the wetlands as proposed. And also the in activity and upland review area. Those are all the regulated areas that are outlined on the most recent revised set of plans. The second application is the petitioner there's been intervention petition that's been filed pursuant to section 22A-19 of the general statutes. The commission will also make a decision on that. Again, I don't know whether that will happen tonight or later, but I've asked the commission to engage with each other and staff in connection with those discussions. I did want to just sort of point out some of the broad understanding of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses statute. You know, the set of statutes was adopted with a balancing of purposes in mind. One, it was designed to protect the wetlands, watercourses, and associated resources of Connecticut, but balance that with the need for economic growth, and that's expressly stated in the statute. And that's the reason, Madam Chair, members, that you have criteria in your regulations under 10.2, in which you make a decision whether or not wetlands should be filled. There is no law in Connecticut that says because something's a wetlands, can't build it, you can't fill it. You may, if a commission with the discretion that your commission has, based on your determination of the criteria under 10.2 of your regulations, which mirrors, by the way, the statutory criteria as well. Our regulations mirror the state regulations. So the statute. So you have that discretion to make that decision. In this case, there is a wetlands disturbance. There is an impact. It has been outlined, and there have been modifications to the plans as has gone forward. My understanding is what I've seen. And you've also received significant information from the applicant, the applicant's experts. The applicant, the intervener also had two experts, I believe. I believe there were two that I remember. So there are two experts. And that information that you receive from them and the credibility of it is something for you to determine. That is not something that is determined by anybody else, not by staff, not by anybody except you. You make that decision as to how much or if of the testimony of any expert that you wish to believe. Some of the information that you receive will have shown that I've heard and what I've seen and read are areas in which there are experts that testified disagree. For example, the water quality was one of them. And the potential for adverse impacts of the runoff. There's a disagreement on that between, I believe, what I heard from the interveners expert and the applicant's expert. And then you also had Mr. Logan, who the staff has retained, who hasn't testified, but has provided staff with assistance based on his review of these records and expert information. So, but that decision as to who to believe with regard to the adverse impact and whether or not the criteria under 10-2 and whether or not that impact is something that you find acceptable is your decision. And the criteria under 10.2 is what you should be looking at. So my suggestion is that we, and it can be today or it can be next week, but my suggestion is that the commissioners take a look at several draft proposals that have been prepared by staff. One for approval and one for denial. And there are these drafts have been prepared for commission review. They are preliminary and they are drafts, and they have specific reference to some of the regulatory material, regulatory information, along with some of the presented information. This is a matter that, while I'm not, my view of this is not, does not constitute substantial evidence. It seems to me that there is substantial evidence and could be substantial evidence determined by this commission on both sides. Which means that it means that you have the discretion then to determine which expert or part of which experts you may believe. Because a lot of the information that you need to, or the decisions you have to make are really science-based. And it's important that you heard information from the public. That's certainly provides you with context, background, and it helps support and provide additional reference for information, expert information that you've received both from the interveners, experts, and also in the interviewer himself or themselves, and also the applicant as well as the applicant's experts. So what my suggestion is, ladies.
One gentleman.
Where's Brian? Oh, Brian, yes, sorry, Brian.
It's up in the clouds.
Sorry, Brian. So my suggestion is that the commission review, take a look at some of the drafts that have been prepared. As I mentioned, there are two, from a legal perspective, procedural perspective, you will be asked to vote on two different matters. One is the SEPA petition. That is what's known as the 22A19, is the little EPA section. Which is why it's called SEPA. It was Connecticut for an EPA. That's the acronym. And that's a decision that you have to make based on the evidence that you've heard. And the question there is whether or not you feel that the proposed plan, as it's been last revised, is reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute, impair, destroy the public trust in the wetlands and water courses of the property, and will result in direct and adverse impacts to the wetlands and water courses. That's the decision that you have to make. The burdens of proof on some of these, on that case, that's on the intervener. That's on the intervener's experts. They have to prove to your satisfaction, almost as you as a jury, that this application meets that standard, that this application, this plan is reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute, impair, or destroy the public trust in the natural resources. So that is their burden of proof. You will decide whether or not they've met that burden. Then I will ask you to make a decision based on the 22A36 inland wetlands application. And that is the what application by which the applicant proposes to, to disturb those areas. I believe there's three crossings, right? There's three crossings as it finally is. And the total wetlands disturbance is how much? Right now, the final wetlands disturbance, actual disturbance is what?
Overall proposed,
No, not the.
this is within
That's-
the 100-foot one.
No, that's the upland review is 3.19, there's 3.19 acres in the upland review area. And then there's the actual disturbance, I believe is, what's the last calculation? Is it like 0.3? It was small, but I just want to make sure they know.
Reduced by that.
It's small.
Well,
It's the last one.
it's been modified several times.
So the total, the permanent impact is 1,600 square feet, the temporary is 2,250. So there's,
For the bridge.
and that's a bridge, so the total, so we're looking at 3,200 of permanent impact, 6,100 of 40 of temporary. And the upland review area, disturbance is 7.23 acres. Now, hold on a second. Yes, okay, so, right?
Marcia asked for how much impervious surface was within the 100-foot of regulated area, and that's what was, the 3.19 was within the,
Within 100 feet.
yes.
Okay, all right, so there's, the regulated areas are obviously the upland review areas. Now, remember that you will make a decision based on whether or not again, there is no statute that says, no rule or regulation that says you can't disturb upland review areas. The question is, what is the impact on the wetlands and watercourses from the disturbance of that? What is that adverse impact? And it can't just be impact. The case law says it has to be an adverse impact. The likelihood of an adverse impact, just an impact, such as, a car dripping oil, has been deemed by the court to not be sufficient, constitutes conjecture. It's not sufficient to meet that standard. So you have to make these judgments, and you have to go through all the factors in 10.2 of your regulations. And that is the measure by which a permit is evaluated. It's not black and it's not white. It's all measured in accordance with the standards set forth in the regulations. And I know you've had to review those before and you've gone through those standards, but my suggestion to you is that you review those standards, that you review the expert reports and testimonies that you've received already. And then you have to come to a consensus as to what you think individually, not a consensus, by the way, you don't have to agree, but individually you should then prepare your thoughts and comments. And I suggest you can either do that tonight or you do that next week. You may need some time to digest all this. It would be my,
Well, the reason we're saying next week is because we are on a time limit.
yes.
So we have 30 days from the last.
35 days.
35 days from the public hearing, closing of the public hearing, so that would give us to next Wednesday. So if we weren't comfortable making a decision this evening, we would have a special meeting next. We'd have a special meeting next Wednesday to continue our discussion and make a decision at that time. We would have to make some type of decision at that time if we weren't comfortable. Now, given the fact that we've kind of just been given this information, will take some time to digest. We've had a lot of information over the last few months regarding this project. We've heard from a lot of people, experts, public, or experts in their own right. They live there, they see it. We have our regulations that I know that we go over. And as Ned stated in section 10.2, there's 14 sub-chapters of that, that we would need to address and that, we have to consider. you know, I think we've all been given that, we all have these drafts, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I probably didn't get a chance to review them tonight, so, I'd like to go over some of them with everybody while we're here, you know, so we can begin the discussion. And then we can determine whether or not we feel that we have enough information to make a decision tonight or to move it till next week. Is that okay? All right, very good. Okay. Ted, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think the outline I've given the commission is, I think it's sufficient for, to frame its proceeding discussions and deliberations. And the only thing I would caution the commission members is that during these periods of discussions and deliberations, it is not appropriate that there be any discussion about the case if it is continued for another week
Correct.
with any member of the public, either socially or through social media. Because you really are in the situation as a jury. And so to ensure the sanctity of your decision-making process, it's important that you keep your discussions about these applications here. They can be done it should be in public though. It's all going to be on the record in public, but it shouldn't be with third-party members. You are though able to have discussions with staff. Okay, that's permitted, but not with members of the public. All right? Okay, so
All right.
take it from there.
Thank you. All right, so just to go over section 10, in case you don't have your record with you. Mine is a very well-worn copy. So I'm sure Marcia's is as well. Some dog ears on there. Okay, section 10.2 states, standards and criteria for decision. The commission shall consider all relevant facts and circumstances in making its decision on any application for a permit in keeping with the purposes and policies of Connecticut General Statute, section 22A-36 through 22A-45 as amended, including but not limited to the following. 10.21, the environmental impact of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and watercourses, including the effects on the inland wetlands and watercourses' capacity to support fish and wildlife, to prevent flooding, to supply and protect surface and groundwaters, to control sediment, to facilitate drainage, to control pollution, to support recreational activities, and to promote health, safety, and welfare. The commission reserves the right to review other activities beyond the 100-foot regulated area if the commission determines that those activities have the possibility of causing an adverse impact on wetlands and watercourses. Section 10.2.2, the applicant's purpose for the proposed regulated activity and any feasible and prudent alternatives to that activity which would achieve the same basic purpose with less or no environmental impact to wetlands and watercourses. The alternatives to the proposed action, including the consideration of alternatives which might enhance environmental quality or have a less detrimental effect, and which could feasibly attain the basic objectives of the activity proposed in the application. The consideration should include, but is not limited to, the alternative of requiring actions of different environmental impacts, such as using a different location for the activity. 10.2.3. The relationship between the short-term and long-term impacts of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and watercourses and the maintenance and enhancement of long-term productivity of such wetlands and watercourses. 10.2.4, irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetland and watercourse resources which are caused by the proposed regulated activity. This includes the extent to which the proposed activity would foreclose a future ability to protect, enhance, or restore those resources. 10.2.5, mitigation measures which the commission may consider as a condition of issuing a permit includes but is not limited to 1, that prevent or minimize pollution or environmental damage. 2, that maintain or enhance existing environmental quality. 3, that restore, enhance, or create productive environmental resources, preferably in that order of priority. 10.2.6, the character and degree of injury to or interference with safety, health, or the reasonable use of property which is caused or threatened by the proposed regulated activity. 10.2.7, the commission may require the applicant to evaluate the impact of an activity on upstream and downstream wetlands and watercourses, stream corridors, as well as impacts on the overall watershed. On and off-site wetlands, along with the associated upland areas, may be part of this watershed evaluation. The design standards for any improvements may take into account restoration and or repair of existing problems within the watershed that are reasonably related to a proposed activity. 10.2.8. Impacts of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and watercourses outside the area for which the activity is proposed. This includes future activities associated with or reasonably related to the proposed regulated activity, which are made inevitable by that activity and which may have an impact on wetlands and watercourses. 10.2.9. The commission may evaluate stormwater management, best management practices, and overall watershed impacts of proposed development as part of either a sediment and erosion control referral or an inland wetlands permit if the commission finds that there might be an impact to off-site wetlands and watercourses. 10.2.10. The presence and quality of a long-term management program for open spaces, conservation easements, stream corridors, detention basins, wetland mitigation areas, and other land management areas in order to preserve and protect wetlands, watercourses, and other natural areas. 10.2.11, compliance with requirements noted in the Connecticut guidelines for soil erosion and sedimentation control, the Borough of Naugatuck subdivision regulations and or zoning regulations or other relevant standards. And 10.2.12, within public water supply watersheds, the offer by the applicant to provide a conservation easement around wetlands and watercourses, 50 feet has been suggested by the Connecticut Water Company, it's just a question, to protect water quality. The commission cannot require a conservation easement for any property, but does feel that it can be a valuable BMP, which is best management practices, where appropriate, for long-term protection of water quality if offered by the applicant. So I just wanted everybody to hear what 10.2 section refers to, because we keep referring back to it. So now that you have heard that, and we have had some review of our plans by another party for that, and some items that were noted for that. Let me just see. Two the same.
Which one? Pick one.
I need this one. You do.
I know this.
Okay, all right, so what we see and what we've heard, is that the regulated activities include 3 wetland watercourse crossings, storm drainage facilities discharging to the wetlands and watercourses of residential buildings, associated parking lots and driveways within the 100-foot upland review area. That's shown on the application plans dated from August 30th, and all the way up through the revisions through January 26th, 24. And then their supporting documentation. And a review of those reports and the materials, from the engineering and environmental professionals that have been hired. And as well as our town's peer reviewers and the environmental interveners, engineering environmental professionals. We see that the applicant may have provided feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed plan, including with their latest submission of the revised plans to reduce the direct wetland and watercourse impacts, which would protect the highly valuable wetlands and watercourses on the site, including the spanning of Long Meadow Brook Pond, Little Meadow Pond Brook, with a bridge structure, and is pursuant to wetlands regulations 10.2 of the application. So that's one item that's noted in one of our regulations that they seem to have met. We know that they've revised the plans. They've heard the public. Maybe the public might not think that they heard all of them, but they did hear some of that, and they have revised the plans to try and mitigate that. as much as they felt they could. The plans also provide best management practices, excuse me, and design criteria to protect and improve the water quality by reducing non-point source pollutant loads pursuant to our regulations 10.2.1. And the recommended minimum of 80% of removal of the total suspended solids, or TSS, from the stormwater appears to have been achieved via the proposed stormwater best management practices. The proposed erosion and sedimentation control plan meets the 2002 Connecticut Deeps guidelines for erosion and sedimentation control. And therefore, the regulated resources will be sufficiently protected during the construction phase. The plans provide for sufficient separation distances between the proposed earthwork, including the stormwater management facilities, discharges, and the wetland and watercourses resources, in order that adverse short-term or long-term impacts shall take place. The plans provide for compensatory wetland mitigation, example, wetland creation, as well as an enhancement to uplands adjacent to wetlands through the removal of invasive plant species. Additionally, and then it kind of goes into a little more detail as to why it meets some of these. And then as well as, you know, regarding section 10.2, that the 10.2.1 for the environmental impact, that it's noted that there's a permanent loss of wetlands watercourses at the 3 proposed crossings, and the lack of 100-foot wide permanent vegetative setback in several locations to the central wetland associated with Long Meadow Pond Brook, which is a highly valuable and functioning resource. And we all know that because a lot of time and money and effort has been spent cleaning up Long Meadow Pond Brook. Just with the creation of the high school, with the updates to the high school, a lot of time went into that. A lot of water quality testing before and after went through that to make sure that there was no issues for it. Well, we certainly don't want anything else to make it back to where it was. We want to maintain that. The likely non-point source pollutant discharges directly to wetlands by the stormwater management facilities that are not compliant with the guidelines of Connecticut Deep's 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual, which will likely result in the release of fine sediment, nutrient enrichment of streams by phosphorus and nitrogen, increased turbidity in the receiving surface waters, and the likely adverse effects upon aquatic ecosystems by metals. That's what we just spent all that time cleaning up. We don't want that to happen again. The applicant's purpose for the proposed regulated activity, any feasible and prudent alternatives to the activity, which would achieve the same basic purpose with less or no environmental impacts on the water courses. So the purpose of a multifamily residential development, the alternatives would cause less impact, would be single-family homes, for which the property is currently zoned for, without any permanent impacts to the central wetland or its southerly flowing perennial tributary. So currently this property is zoned for R30, so they're single-family homes, and the applicant would like to install multi-family residential development. As we see, the several buildings, the multiple floors, number of units that we have. So, you know, an alternative would be what, not doing that? Of course, you know, maybe get single family, maybe do nothing with it. So I think there's still some room that they can move on that, so with plans for less impact. The construction disturbances to the wetlands and watercourses are substantial, and though they may be short-term, there'll be permanent long-term loss of wetlands and regulated habitats at the 3 road crossings. The discharge of partially treated stormwater from inadequate stormwater management facilities will result in permanent long-term impact to the regulated courses. Irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetland and watercourse resources which are caused by the proposed regulated activity which is 10.2.4. The loss of a highly functioning and valuable wetlands at 2 of the 3 road crossings is irreversible and irretrievable. The proposed compensatory wetland mitigation at 1 location is not of sufficiently detailed and will not replace lost functions and values. The, regarding mitigation measures, pollution has not been minimized since the proposed stormwater management system has not been designed following the guidelines of Connecticut Deep's 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual, which are considered mitigative measures. And as a result, existing environmental quality shall not be maintained or enhanced. Restoration or enhancement of existing regulated resources are not proposed, and the proposed creation of wetland habitat at 1 location lacks sufficient detail, the rationale for selecting a specific area, or how the wetland watercourse functions and values that are lost or impacted would be mitigated at the proposed area. Regarding the character and degree of injury to or interference with the health and safety, and reasonable use of the property, the regulated activity associated with 3 road crossings and with stormwater management facilities that do not meet the guidelines for DEEP's 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual as to both volume and water quality protection unnecessarily jeopardizes the function and health of the wetland and watercourse resources. The subject site could be developed in alternative ways to cause less injury to the regulated resources. And regarding impacts of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands outside of the area for which the activity is proposed, which includes future activities associated with or reasonably related to the proposed regulated activity, which are made inevitable by the activity, may have an impact on the wetlands and watercourses. That the application involves discharge of partially treated stormwater from stormwater management facilities that do not meet the guidelines of DEEP's 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual, and which not only impact the on-site wetlands and the on-site segment of the Long Meadow Pond Brook, but also segments downstream of the property. So those are just some of the things that we're considering that I think are very important for us to discuss. You know, there's good parts of it, bad parts of it, like anything else. And like I said before, every time we get a new application and a new development or something, it's always, you think it's the same, but it's not. And we learn something from that. So what can we learn from this? Well, I can tell you that what I learned. No, it's not helpful. We see it, we understand it, but that's not what we're here for, so. You know what? I think what we've learned on this is that, you know, we're very careful at what we do and how we look at things. You know, as Ned said, it's not, doesn't mean that you can't build in the wetlands, but you have to be smart about it, right? You have to meet certain regulations. Some of these regulations are met, some of these regulations are not met. We know that. And I think the important one that is not met, that's critical, is the stormwater management. And I just don't think that that's something that we can say, okay, well, you know what, let's give us your plans afterwards. That's the whole crux of this, is we need stormwater management. You know, there's too much that comes off of that. Their plans don't seem to be meeting that. From what we've heard, from, you know, what we've observed, and from what we have in front of us. So my opinion would be, you know, the stormwater quality is just, it's not being met. And that's a critical feature of this. So I'd like to know what the other commissioners think about that. As well as, you know, the project in general and how it meets regulations or doesn't meet the regulations. Marcia?
I agree with you on that, Tracy. As far as the stormwater management, we had, I guess, different opinions between the applicant's engineer and the interveners. engineer, regarding the treatment of stormwater, and I tend to favor the intervenor, engineers, Steve Trinkus's testimony regarding that, and the study that he, was conducted in New Hampshire, where they looked at the difference in the online and the offline treatments. And I also, another concern I have with the stormwater is that the system is not a system that will allow the water to infiltrate the ground the same way that it is doing now currently. And we know that that water is used to recharge the aquifer, the basin. And when we take that away, I think we're really changing the whole site, the way the water, it's percolates into the ground, and then it goes into the wetlands, which then recharges this aquifer that, is really important in this area. So I have a big concern with that. Another thing that, it's related to that I have a concern with is the lack of, boots on the ground survey that we've asked for and DL has asked for since the beginning. This is just something where we can understand what might be on that site. It's been brought to our attention from many neighbors, people who've lived in this area for, decades, that there are pollutants on this site. We don't know where they are. I know there was a study done by Delta Environmental back in maybe 2006, but as far as I can tell in that study, they did not address the entire site. It's just a small portion of the site near the greenhouses. So I still think that I can't entertain approving anything that would not take into account a boots on the ground study where we actually look and see what's out there, what kind of contaminants may or may not be there. Maybe that implies, warrants having a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 study done, which has been suggested throughout this hearing. So, that's one of my concerns on the stormwater is we don't know what could happen if we start excavating on that site. And I don't want to take that chance as a commissioner in my community and leave it up to chance that it'll be okay when it's too late. So I would love to see a study done on that still before I can approve anything at any time on this site. So those are just my concerns on that for now. I don't know if anybody else wanted to add.
Thank you. Wendy Ann or Louise, anything?
I concur totally with Marcia. Stormwater runoff is a huge concern, in addition to everything that she mentioned. I'm not gonna reiterate it all, but I totally agree with her.
Louise?
I agree too. The stormwater is the main thing, and it's not.
Okay. Brian?
I concur. I'm very concerned about the stormwater as well.
Thank you. Given the information that we have and our discussions and what we've heard and read, would this commission be able to make a decision this evening whether or not this application moves forward or not?
So I personally would like a little more time to go through some of the material that was presented to us this evening. So I would prefer to wait until next Wednesday if that's when we decide we want to meet again. Yeah, and I just think there's a lot to go through and I want to make sure that everything is, proper for me to make a vote.
Wendy Ann?
I'm not ready to make a decision this evening.
Louise?
I'm sorry, I'm not ready either.
Okay,
It's just too much.
all right. Brian?
I'm in accordance with the others. I'm not ready to make a decision this evening.
Very good. All right. So we will not be making a decision this evening on this. We will reconvene on March 13th, right? What's the date? My calendar. Yeah, we can discuss it, but I just want to set the date. 13th at 6:30. March 13th at 6:30 PM here in the, before this? Okay, 6:30 PM.
That's March 13th, last day.
That's when we'll make a decision, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna stop discussing it right now, so. That's just to make sure we set the date, so we have that. So, March 13th, 6:30 PM here. Okay, So we do have, let me just give a few minutes so that people that are exiting, they can leave, if they'd like.
Yeah. I can. Like they're home.
Oh, okay.
You don't.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They're not.
Dependent, okay. It's not dependent on. So maybe it's.
Yeah, I'll explain that.
Right.
He had no warning. Good.
Being in the hot sun.
Oh, that's good. It's good still discuss. Oh, I mean, the regulations do matter. I mean, just matter sure it's free.
All right, so, like I said, we're gonna continue discussing this, we still have some time. Oh, sorry, how about that? Okay. It's a weird one. Okay, so we have kind of two summaries, that were prepared by George Logan, after he went through all the material, all the testimony, everything that we had, the plans, everything, our regulations, obviously. And, he kind of came up with some conclusions, like I said, some good parts, some bad parts. You know, but it's how it meets our regulations, right? So, let me just kind of go through kind of like an approval type of thing, you know, what seemed to have gotten right. So let's see. It talks about, page 1, I kind of went over some of that, for the feasible and prudent alternatives. Yes, they've submitted some, so, but I don't think all of them, in my opinion.
And that's a matter of
It's a matter, yeah.
discretion of the commission. The commission is not required to accept the feasible and prudent alternative of either the intervener or the applicant. The applicant, because there was a finding of substantial activity, has to submit them, but the commission is not required to accept the alternatives that are proposed by either party. You know what I mean? It's not required. You're required to consider that.
Right. They're not, they may not be the only alternatives.
That's right. There might be others.
You know, there might be things that, you know.
That's right.
Right, there might be other alternatives to that, so, you know, we see that some of the buildings were moved and, you know, some of the crossings were, and some things were scaled down and that's all great, but, you know, I think, you know, maybe some people would think the best alternative would be to do nothing and then there would be no impact, right? So, you know, but, I mean, that's not what the applicant wants to do, and I understand that, you know, it's their land, it's their property, they wanna build on it. But it has to be within the regulations, so, while I think they did provide some, you know, alternatives to it, and I think they did try to work with the public on that, while still maintaining what they needed to get out of the property. Perhaps not all of them on that. not more than enough. Let's see. Sediment and erosion and sedimentation control plan, meeting the regulations, or, that has to be done. Sufficient separation distances, excuse me, between the proposed earthwork, including the storm management facilities, discharges, and the wetland and the watercourse resources, in order that adverse short-term or long-term impact shall take place. So the proposed earthwork, I think that's the regrading and the excavation and all that. So when they have their stockpiles of dirt from excavation and their materials. Let's see. Compensatory wetland mitigation, so the wetland creation. As well as enhancements to uplands adjacent to wetlands through the removal of invasive plant species. Well, yeah, I mean, we know there's some invasive plant species and they're called invasive for a reason, so removing some of that probably be best. Let's see what else. The irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetland and water courses. There won't be a loss of highly functioning and valuable wetlands at the three road crossings, but nonetheless, they are loss of wetlands. To that. Potential for pollution of wetlands and water courses minimized through the proposed stormwater management system. Yes, they proposed something for the stormwater management system, but, as we discussed, it doesn't seem like it meets the requirements that we need. Let's see. Compliance noted that the Connecticut guidelines for the soil and erosion sedimentation. So met to the extent practical, resulting in protection of regulated resources both during the short-term construction and long-term. So those would be some things that they've met that they, might work towards an approval. Let's say.
The other point is is the TSS, the removal of solids, so
Right.
seemed that that's where there's some discrepancy in the testimony with the experts
Mhm.
between
Right.
removal, and I think that we also had staff comment on that,
Yeah.
correct, Lori? Jim, we had staff with Mr. Logan's comment on
10.2.1.
TSS removals percentage
Mhm.
by Mr. Logan. I think Mr. Logan felt that that part was met,
Yes.
but it did not, but the stormwater management did not result in, did not remove some of the metals and the phosphorus, I believe.
Correct.
Yes, nitrogen, phosphorus,
Nitrogen,
metal.
phosphorus, the
Right.
metals, so.
Some of it,
so-
but not all of it, the
so-
important parts.
Yeah, so remember that when I prefaced the discussion about experts and who you may believe, and you may believe part of one expert and part of another. You have that discretion because all that evidence is in the record. So it's up to you to determine which all or part, or sometimes none, sometimes. But in a wetlands case, there has to be some expert testimony in order for the decision to be valid, but
Mhm.
so that's one of those examples, okay? All right, sorry.
That's all right, thank you. Let's see, so, and then, the denial, I know we're kind of honing in on that stormwater, management, quality, it's important. It's just, I just think it's something we can't ignore on that, no matter the scale of the project. I don't care if it was an acre, it just needs to meet that. That's a thought. What are your guys' thoughts, Marcia?
I just wanted to know what the other commissioners thought about, I don't know if everybody has their regulations in front of them, but 10.2.10. The presence and quality of the long-term management program for open spaces, conservation easements, stream corridors, detention basins, wetland mitigation areas, and other land management areas in order to preserve and protect wetlands, water courses, and other natural areas. I don't really see much of this in the plan. I just want to know what anybody else thinks about it.
I agree. I mean, it didn't seem like there was, much protection, it doesn't seem to be. I think there were gonna be some plantings, but maybe there wasn't gonna be enough of. I think George did, is George still on the line? George Logan?
Yes.
Okay, George, I think you may have commented something about that.
Yeah, we didn't look at that more carefully, but yes, there is not much that's been put in the record as far as what would happen with complying with that particular criterion. So there's no conservation easements, nothing that was proposed in that vein.
Yeah. So it doesn't really meet, there's nothing there for us to even go on 10.2.10. There's nothing really, there's not much there. And I think we've seen in other, even smaller projects where they've actually, that's really been focused on as well, and that's, been highlighted and met, so that there wouldn't be a reason not to meet it in, plan of this scale, I would think. So maybe it was just overlooked by the applicant, concentrating on the other important issues, but, these are all important to us. Marcia, anything else?
Well, I know one other thing that I had listened to the transcripts from the last couple of meetings, and I know at one of the December meeting, I had was expressing my concern with the amount of disturbance in the 100-foot review area, and especially with regard to steep slopes, which the site has a lot of steep slopes associated with it. And the applicant engineer had asked me if I wanted to see a plan, with the site plan outside of the 100-foot area. And I would have liked to have seen that. I know the plan, would probably look a lot different, but that's an alternative that I would have liked to have seen. Less activity within this 100-foot area where the slopes are very steep, and Southwest talked about steep slopes. And King's Mark report talks about the steep slopes on the site and how challenging they are. And I know that in a lot of cases, that's taken into account when deciding how far to review. It's almost like where if a slope is steep, it almost gives it a little more,
Protection?
yeah, because it's sloping towards the wetlands. It's not sloping away from the wetlands, it's sloping towards them.
Right.
And there's just a lot of activity there. So as far as, alternative, I would have liked to have seen something like that. The intervener did submit something, that is outside of that area, except for a small portion, I think, on one of the plans. I know that plan, it's been mentioned that plan only takes into a portion of the site, but I know the appraiser's report that was introduced by the intervener also talks about the different lots and maybe other configurations that could have been done. So it's just something I would have liked to have seen is more alternatives. I don't think the alternatives submitted by the applicant really made that much of less of an impact, in my opinion. There's still all the roads, the river crossings, there's still that impact on the steep slopes. There's 7+ acres of impervious surface. So I just think a lot of that adds up to, having poor water quality. Just taking away that pervious area that the site depends on now. So I don't know how everybody else feels about the alternatives. If you think the applicants were sufficient or not sufficient.
Yeah, I don't think they were sufficient in that. I mean, you asked for additional information and it wasn't provided. So was it not provided because that would show something negative, or was it not provided because, oh, we've got too much other stuff, or it was forgotten about, or, we don't know. We just know that we haven't seen it, something that we asked for that may help us, or even help the applicant, and it wasn't provided. So we're not getting things that we're asking for as well. Anything else that you can think of? You want to bring up?
Right. Oh, no. That's what I want to say right now.
Wendy, anything, please?
No.
Brian,
No.
anything you'd like to add or any questions for the commissions, to bring up? No? Okay. All right, I'm gonna ask Ned to explain the, response to the intervention under Connecticut General Statutes, 22A-19, and the requirement of that statute.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. So as I may have mentioned briefly previously, the SEPA Act is the 22A-19 statute that authorizes anyone to intervene in any administrative proceeding for the purpose of being heard in connection with any application for either wetlands, any administrative action. So it doesn't have to be a neighbor, unlike zoning, or you have to be aggrieved. Or you have to be within a certain linear footage, or you have to be in a butter. The SEPA Act allows any person to intervene in any proceeding. But that intervener does bear the burden of proving that the proposed activity is reasonably likely to unreasonably, I know this is a little, just asking, some lawyer must have written this, right? It's that the proposal is reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute, impair, destroy the natural resources of the state. Now, so this petition, as I mentioned, the petitioner has the burden of proving that. Now, it is your decision whether or not that burden of proof has been met. Again, you are the jury. It is not incongruous or improper for you to find that this burden of proof has not been met, but that you don't approve an application for the wetlands disturbance on the 22A-36 petition. It is not incongruous to find both ways. You could find the same way on both. You could find that, yes, the petitioner has met their burden of proof that the application is reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute the water courses, and the wetlands application pursuant to 22A-36 is denied based on the criteria of 10.2 and the reasons for that. So you can find it's not necessary to find both things in the same way, is my point. Okay.
So we could approve one and deny another.
That's right.
Or we could approve both, or we could deny both.
Right. So it's
separate from.
They are separate applications. This technically 22A-19 is deemed a petition. The wetlands is deemed an application because it's the person who owns the property making the application.
Mm-hmm.
And in this petition, it's anybody in the world. It happens to be I think, people who live sort of nearby, I guess, in this case, but it could be anybody. It's allowed under the law.
Doesn't have to be a resident.
Does not. No, it can be anybody. There are people that have appear as interveners from everywhere. And normally it is a resident. It is residents because the only ones that the commissions perhaps give some heed to. But the statute just says that any person, says any person may do this. And so, but again, in terms of your role, your job is to determine whether or not that the intervener has met their burden of proof. And in doing so, in this case, this really requires expert testimony in accordance with the case law is. So you would be evaluating again the experts. You would be making an opinion on that. And you could believe part, whole, and I gave you an example where there was differences in part or whole with some of what staff has looked at.
So then the experts for the intervener would be Mr. Trinkus.
Yes, and there was also
another one
a gentleman by the name of Dan, Mr. Danzer, I
Danzer.
believe, right, and yes, and his, if that'd be something I'd recommend that the members read that report read those two reports, the latest reports, and also take a look at, and then compare those to, did BL do a CEPA review, Lori? I didn't see it. Lori?
I don't think I'm looking for it. Hold on.
So I would look at those and ask staff to provide you with the concomitantly submitted reviews either by Mr. Logan or the other other experts in the record, whether it be the gentleman from BL. You might want to look at, I believe, was it Megan Raymond, the soil?
He's the soil scientist. for-
I would look at whatever comments or report she had submitted, just so you're getting the whole picture. And then you decide.
Can I ask you a question? So in zoning, an intervener has to be based on an environmental issue. Is it
Well, that's
the
what this
same,
is.
is it the same with this here? So it's solely based on environmental?
Yes,
Mhm.
it has to, it's all about the likelihood of destruction of the public resources. Yes, yes. And we've seen them in zoning too.
Yeah.
We have. Yes, you're not the only commission where people interview.
Oh, really?
Yes,
You're just the first. one.
right? Oh, that's right.
No, it's good.
Yeah, we've had a few.
We've
We've had a few.
interventions.
Yeah,
But it
We did a
is-
couple here too.
Yeah.
It's solely based though on whether or not the intervener bears the burden of proving that it's an environmental issue.
And can I just add something for the commissioners when they're, just something that I found helpful is, reviewing the transcript, listening to the meetings again. I feel like sometimes when you're here, you don't necessarily hear everything. So I think, it might be helpful if you want to listen to them again,
Great.
because,
Might catch something.
you don't, some of the documents that were submitted are quite lengthy, and you might get a better synopsis too from the engineers and soil scientists by listening to what they have to say again. And you can fast forward. Lori had them put on YouTube for me. I wanted to listen to some, and you can fast forward through a lot of the parts and, just to get to the meat of what you might be looking for. I found that really helpful.
I think it's always good to re-review because, you might pick something up that you didn't, or maybe didn't understand. And now it's explained further for it.
So to make this a little more complicated, if you find that the SEPA, if you find that that they've met their burden of proof, then you have to go to the feasible prudent alternative analysis, and that's the same analysis though that you do under the 22A36. If you find that they haven't met their burden of proof, you don't have to go to the feasible prudent alternative analysis. Okay, so we'll get there with you because I know you're not planning to decide tonight,
No.
but that's the outline of the process.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Everybody got that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought so. So, I knew you guys would. Let me go. Okay. So, like Marcia said, listen to the tapes. They are available, and if you have trouble accessing it, just reach out to Lori.
Reach out to me anyways, I'll send the link.
Yeah, send the link. We can listen to those. Let's read these, drafts that we have here. And whatever questions that you have, bring them with you, or you can always ask, like I said, we can ask staff. You can call Ned, you can call Lori, you can call Jim, any of those people. I give you permission. And yeah, you're very welcome. I'm always thinking of you. And then we'll go from there. And I think next week obviously we'll have some decision. May not be the right decision for some and maybe the right decision for others, but we'll have something. So I thank you all for your time, of course. And thank you very much for everybody here, everyone who's stuck with us here at the public.
I might add one more thing.
Sure.
I just wanted to publicly thank the staff because I know that we have a lot of information on this application, and I know it's a little stressful to make sure everything is proper and put online for everybody to see, when you have a public hearing
And deliver to us
Yeah,
that we need.
and the packages have been delivered, so I just wanted to publicly thank them.
Yes,
because
thank you.
They do a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah, we couldn't do our job without you guys doing your job, so we appreciate that. It is a group effort, but it's gotta start with somewhere, right? So we're a team. So thank you. Good one. Okay, so I don't think there's anything else with that. I think, hold on. See if I don't think there's anything else on my agenda or on the agenda. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Brian. I knew I could count on you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Adjourned 8:50.
Good night.
Yeah, and I had